In the environmental world, the phrase "going green" is usually a good thing, unless that phrase describes the changing color of a lake or stream. The increasing levels of algae-promoting nutrients in Florida's waters have prompted environmental groups to pressure the federal EPA to impose specific limits on the amounts of nitrogen and phosphorus that should be allowed. Depending on where those levels are set and how soon they must be met, the cost to comply could be high for Florida agriculture and utilities. The pending EPA standards to protect Florida's waters is our topic on this edition of North Florida Journal. Hello, I'm Tom Krinsky. This past week, the Federal Environmental Protection Agency has held meetings at several sites across the state to get reaction to its proposal to set numeric standards for nutrient water quality in the state. The proposal is the result of a lawsuit filed against the EPA by a coalition of environmental groups to compel the agency to enforce the Federal Clean Water Act. The EPA heard strong opposition to their proposal from several sectors that would be greatly impacted, including agriculture and utility wastewater treatment operations. Florida government has a strong interest in what the EPA is planning to impose and in the work of its own Department of Environmental Protection. Representative Leonard Bembry is the ranking Democrat on the House Agriculture and Natural Resources Policy Committee. His district runs from Alachua County to Wakulla County and includes both numerous springs and rivers and large agricultural operations. Neil Armingeon is the St. Johns River Keeper. River Keeper is a Jacksonville-based citizens group whose mission is the protection and preservation of the St. Johns River. They were one of the 5 groups that brought the lawsuit against the EPA. A variety of agricultural interests, including crop, dairy, and animal producers, have raised questions about the efficacy of what the EPA is proposing and about the economic impact that implementing the standards now would have on the state's economy. Charles Shinn is the Assistant Director for Governmental and Community Affairs for the Florida Farm Bureau Federation. One of the other environmental groups involved in the lawsuit, along with the Florida Wildlife Federation, was the Sierra Club of Florida. Rob Brinkman is the chair of the Suwannee St. John's group of the Sierra Club, which has a long history of concern and activism with regard to Florida's springs and lakes. We want to thank all of you for joining us, and perhaps one of the topics that I find that seems to bring out the passions in a lot of people is when you start talking about environmental things here in North Florida and across the state. And if we could start with Mr. Armingeon, since your group was one of the people
Sure.
in groups involved in filing the lawsuit against the EPA. What is it that the numeric standards will do or are supposed to do, and what does this mean as far as the environmental community feels?
Well, first, thanks. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. And simply put, what we hope that the proposed regulations will begin to protect the waterways of Florida. My river, the St. Johns River, has experienced toxic blue-green algae blooms almost every summer for 5 years. We know that the river is exceeded its assimilative capacity, which basically means we're putting more nitrogen and phosphorus in the St. Johns River than it can treat.
And Mr. Brinkman, from where you sit here in the Suwannee St. Johns area, not just the St. Johns River, but you're concerned about other areas of this state. Tell us a little bit about that.
Indeed, we are. Right here in Noonan's Lake, we've had our own problems with harmful algal blooms. We've got lots of springs in my group's area, and those springs are rapidly declining, have been declining for many years, and the situation is getting significantly worse. And I really think it has a potential to really seriously impact Florida's tourist economy.
Representative Bembry, as a member of the legislature, the idea of the federal government coming in and setting these standards, I know, has irritated some people in the state. What is your belief on that? And do you think, that this is something that is something that the state is going to be able to comply with and meet these goals?
First of all, I'd like to say thank you very much for the opportunity to be here today and to speak for agriculture and And I'd like to say that, you know, I'm from my district in Hamilton County, and I've been in agriculture. My family's been in agriculture for many years. In our district, you know, Florida has 720 springs, and 126 of those springs are in my district. They also have 33 first magnitude springs, and I think 8 of those are in my district. So, you know, we care very deeply for our springs and about springs protection, and about the situation that we're faced with today. You know, EPA's new proposed numeric nutrient water quality standards, it's very threatening. It's very threatening to agriculture, and it's very threatening to business at a time that neither it has the opportunity to erode our economic base and competitiveness and economic vitality. And I think, to me, there's situations involved in that's not based on good background. And I'd like to see a little more study, and you know, and let it be a little bit more, rather than a regionalized approach, you know, from one size fits all, to a situation where there's more background given and more concern to the individual bodies of water, so that we can have better solutions.
Mr. Shinn, from somebody who works for the Florida Farm Bureau, the idea of clean water, it's pretty hard to argue against that, isn't it?
Absolutely. And thanks for allowing me to be here this evening as well. Agriculture needs clean water just as much as people need clean water, or tourism needs clean water. Agriculture has been working to get cleaner water for many years, working very closely with the Department of Environmental Protection, DEP, as well as Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, in developing TMDLs to address the problems that we may have contributed to the pollution problem. The pollution problem doesn't come just from agriculture, but agriculture is part of the problem. Therefore, we need to be part of the solution. And we have been doing that in the past. We're very actively doing it, continuing to do it. And as long as standards are based on solid, sound science, we are all behind it.
If you could explain what TMDL is.
I'd be glad to, and I'm sorry about that. I use acronyms a lot. Total maximum daily load, which is, and in fact, excuse me, Mr. Armingeon mentioned just a little bit ago about the St. Johns River with algae blooms. Whenever there's an algae bloom like that, it's typically the amount of nutrients or pollution going into that body of water is more than the body of water can assimilate, or in other words, it can take care of itself. And so total maximum the total maximum daily load is the level at which the body of water can assimilate the pollutants or whatever it is that may be going into that body of water.
And if you wanted,
in a lot of these discussions we hear that we have the total maximum daily load project, and why don't we just follow through with that? And my response to that is, for us in the lower St. Johns River, we have been dealing with the TMDL for over 12 years. And the reason that we even have this process underway is a group of citizens who grew tired of nothing being done, you know, drove this process. So for us in Jacksonville, and for many people up and down the river, when we hear the word TMDL and we see no improvement, and the other thing still with the TMDL, there is no real understandable criteria. This is really about numeric standards that can be applied to a water body, that is understandable, and most importantly for us, is enforceable.
Well, Neil, when we're looking at TMDLs, we're the department thus far has been looking on at TMDLs and developing TMDLs on a basin by basin. You know, that's how they've been operating. It does sound like there's a problem in the St. Johns Basin, and if so, that really needs to be addressed, and maybe something needs to go back. We even want the basins are looked at, and what's first developed is a Basin Management Action Plan, or BMAP.